Bonjour, this is lesson number 9 for standard 12, un accident de la route, which means a road accident. La semaine passée, Olivier a eu un accident. Il roulait à moto lorsqu'un petit garçon a tout à coup traversé devant lui. Il a freiné pour l'éviter, mais il a perdu le contrôle de sa moto qui a dérapé. Il est tombé sur le côté et sur la tête. Il n'avait pas de casque. Il a perdu connaissance pendant quelques minutes. So, last week, Olivier met with an accident. Il roulait à moto. He was riding his bike. Rouler is to ride, okay, or to travel on his bike. Lorsqu'un petit garçon, when a little boy, a tout à coup traversé devant lui, suddenly crossed the road in front of him. Il a freiné pour l'éviter. He braked, okay, he tried to stop the bike to avoid him, to avoid crashing into the boy. Mais il a perdu le contrôle de sa moto, but obviously when you're braking, suddenly he lost control of his bike, qui a dérapé. Dérapé is to skid. Il est tombé sur le côté et sur la tête, and he fell off the bike on his side and on his head. Il n'avait pas de casque, he was not wearing a helmet. Il a perdu connaissance pendant quelques minutes. He lost consciousness, or he became unconscious for a few minutes. Quand il a repris conscience, il y avait plein de gens autour de lui. Il a su qu'il était blessé car il saignait beaucoup au front et il avait mal à la tête et aux bras. La peau de son bras était toute éraflée et il avait une plaie profonde à l'avant-bras. Heureusement, le petit garçon, lui, n'avait rien. So what happened to him because he fell off his bike? When he regained consciousness, il y avait plein de gens autour de lui. There were a lot of people around him, or there were a lot of people surrounding him. Il a su. Su is the participle of savoir. Okay, so he knew that he was injured. Blesser, now be careful, is a faux ami because it is not to bless, but it is rather to injure. So in the passive voice, he knew that he had been injured, car il saignait beaucoup, because he was bleeding a lot. Au front, saigner is to bleed normally, yaar. Au front, from the forehead, et il avait mal à la tête et au bras. And his arm and his head were hurting. La peau de son bras, the skin of his arm, était toute éraflée. The skin of his arm was entirely grazed or scraped. Et il avait une plaie profonde à l'avant-bras. And he had a deep wound or a deep cut on his forearm. Une plaie is a wound. Heureusement, le petit garçon, lui, n'avait rien. Fortunately or luckily for that little boy who crossed the road in front of him, nothing happened. Quelqu'un a appelé une ambulance qui l'a emmené aux urgences de l'hôpital Saint-Luc. Le médecin de gare est tout de suite venu l'examiner. L'infirmier a nettoyé ses blessures, puis le médecin, après une injection d'anesthésion, a suturé la plaie au front puis celle au coude. So someone called an ambulance when they saw this accident, qui l'a emmené aux urgences de l'hôpital Saint-Luc, which took Olivier to the emergency or to the casualty at St. Luke's Hospital. Le médecin de garde, the on-duty doctor, est tout de suite venu l'examiner. Quickly or immediately came over to examine him to see what went wrong. L'infirmière a nettoyé ses blessures. The nurse cleaned up his wounds, cleaned up his injuries. Puis le médecin and then the doctor, après une injection d'anesthésion, after an injection of anesthetic, a suturé sa plaie au front, puis celle au coude, stitched up his wound on the forehead and then the wound on the elbow, because remember he fell from the bike onto his side, onto his hand and onto his head. Ensuite, on lui a fait un scanner de la tête pour vérifier qu'il n'avait pas de lésion au cerveau ou de fracture du crâne. Heureusement, il n'avait rien, mais il a quand même dû rester un jour en observation à l'hôpital. Ensuite, on lui a fait un scanner de la tête. Following that, they did a scan of his head, or they did an x-ray of his head. Why? To check that there were no injuries, that there were no lesions on the brain. Le cerveau is the brain, le crâne is the skull. Okay, check that there were no injuries to the brain or that there was no fracture to the skull. Heureusement, il n'avait rien. So thankfully, fortunately, nothing of the kind. Mais il a quand même dû rester un jour en observation à l'hôpital. Nevertheless, or still, in spite of there being no injury to the brain or skull, he had to spend a day under observation at the hospital. Le lendemain, l'infirmière a refait son pansement, puis le médecin l'a à nouveau examiné. Comme il n'avait ni fièvre ni mal à la tête, il pouvait sortir. Le docteur lui a prescrit beaucoup de repos pendant une semaine et des médicaments à prendre pendant quelques jours. Il lui a fait une ordonnance pour la pharmacie. So the next day, after his day under observation, the nurse redid his bandage. Okay. Puis le médecin l'a à nouveau examiné. So after redoing the dressing or the bandage, the doctor came again to examine him. À nouveau, encore une fois, once more. Comme il n'avait ni fièvre ni mal à la tête, because he didn't have neither fever nor a headache, il pouvait sortir. He was allowed to, or he could leave the hospital. Le docteur lui a prescrit beaucoup de repos pendant une semaine. The doctor prescribed or advised him a lot of rest for 1 week. The repos, rest, and prescrit is the participe of prescrire. Et des médicaments à prendre pendant quelques jours. And some medicines to be taken for a few days. Il lui a fait une ordonnance pour la pharmacie. He also made out a prescription, une ordonnance prescription for the pharmacy, for the tablets. Maintenant il est guéri, mais il a eu peur, et il n'oubliera donc jamais cette bonne leçon, ne pas rouler trop vite et toujours porter un casque. Il a risqué sa vie ce jour-là. So, now he is fine, now he is cured, mais il a eu peur, but he got scared. Il n'oubliera donc jamais cette bonne leçon. He will never forget this good lesson, or this timely lesson. What did he learn now from the accident? Ne pas rouler trop vite, never to ride too quickly, to ride too fast, et toujours porter un casque, and to always wear his helmet. Il a risqué sa vie ce jour-là. He risked his life on that day. Merci.